people in the world practically, and they're going to watch no matter whether you give them permission to watch or not. And it's probably, and if you don't give them the permission to watch, they're going to watch just out of spite. So it's better to actually force them to watch. Yeah. Better to say, we're going to stop The Office and you have to sit in the...
Well, that's what I think some companies are doing. They're sort of utilising this, they're sort of going with the flow and going, right, well, let's have some team-building thing. But, of course, some people's countries didn't get through, and it's going to sort of...
They invited some fans who didn't show up, and the fans that did show up, they had their money that had been offered to them earlier taken from them, so now they can't afford to eat, and they're probably going to... burn in the desert. I've been to Qatar, and I was really surprised by their banning of the gays or telling gays to behave or whatever, because it's a very, very gay place. Hugely gay. Doha is, I'm from San Francisco, and that seems too much for me.
Is that true?
I felt like I couldn't keep up. Guys riding by on camels offering you a ride, it's like, I'm married to a man, so I'm available.
Is it true that they have something called Gay Thursdays or something where they're all gay on Thursday, and then because on Friday they can sort of wipe their sins clean,
so to speak. They do.
Wipe something clean.
Something has to be wiped. It was weird because I just assumed when I met all those Syrian hairdressers that were just camp by the piano in the hotel I was staying in that everybody knew. But you just can't call yourself gay. You can do whatever you like. Obviously, it's a male-dominated culture, and they do what they like. But you just can't be political about it. So
no flags.
No. What'd you call me?
Fine. Our next question is from John. Hey, John, regular here.
Hello. Do you think the UK should strike a new deal with Brussels?
Wow, let's go GBNews. So do you think the UK should strike a new deal with Brussels? This hits headlines this morning. A report in the Sunday Times says the government under PM Rishi Sunak believe that relations are improving with the EU. This could reportedly lead to a trade deal with the bloc, along the lines of what Switzerland already has. But that could anger the more hardcore Brexiteer Tories because of contributions we'd have to make to the bloc. Of course, so another row may now be brewing. This is never going anywhere, is it?
Well,
guys?
I think it's absolutely ridiculous because what's being proposed, it's going to be like Switzerland, except we're going to have to send them money, and we're going to have an open immigration policy. So that's not like Switzerland. That's not. We're going to have to go in the European Court of Justice, which is not like Switzerland. So it's like these Tories are ridiculous because it's like it's not like Switzerland. It's like saying, we're going to be like. We're going to be like Qatar, but have alcohol. Then it's not going to be like...
So they're just not going to go together. I mean, I always sort of see the analogy as like your ex and what kind of relationship you're going to have with your ex. There's no reason you can't be amicable with your ex. And
once I'm done with them, I'm done with them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I got to move on. I got stuff to do.
You're totally right about that, Josh. You're totally right about that. It's like you break up with your ex, but you still allow them to use their flat, and you still have to send them money. And you still have to you still have to obey them when they say you can't have sex with their sister.
Well,
you broke up with me. I can do what I want to do.
Yeah, but you have kids. We're all the kids, so they have to look after us. I kind of want them to lessen the immigration restrictions because my dealer died. And I was getting so good on Bosnian. But anyway, I think, there has to be some sort of trade deal that goes on because the inflation here is insane. It's going to be much worse unless they fix this, immediately.
Yeah.
They got to fix it right now.
And to see, obviously, the fact that it's the Tory government who are actually pushing this agenda, they do recognise, even though no one's saying it out loud, even Labour's not saying it out loud, but the fact is we are now seeing the impacts on our economy because of Brexit.
We have been for quite some time, and the impacts on migration, too. In fact, a lot of these problems we're having now at the border with these centres that aren't working out or with people's heating bills, all this could have been, seen 5 years ago. All this, we knew all this. They did nothing about it. I think that we were all kind of struggling to understand why Boris Johnson was Prime Minister and then what happened after that. We're all just trying to keep up with the Tory circus. You know what I mean? Trying to figure out what their next move might be. It's happening in the U.S. too with politics.
It is a circus because the idea was we're going to close off immigration, and now they're opening it up, and they're saying we have to open it up to keep prices down. But the point is, it's not about prices. It's about the fact that British people want those jobs.
It's to keep your cappuccino price down because, you want to keep your grapes at £2.50 a pound. You better bring, foreign workers in. That's just how it works.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, that's immoral.
Why?
Because you're basically making your own residents suffer so that the people who have money to buy your cappuccino or the grapes.
Well, except that this benefits your own residents because your own residents want to pay the cheap prices that only come through cheap labour. I mean, look, it's an endless argument, but essentially what you're saying is you're going back to America, right?
Considering they won't let me pick grapes.
I don't think the wall doesn't work very well there, I don't think, because Mexicans can build doors. But also, and they have ladders, two to a truck. But I also think that, you know, where walls are built, wars happen. Terrible idea.
Well, look, it's still a toxic subject. Hopefully, with a bit of distance, we can actually start. And I'm talking about both sides here, maybe appraising things with a bit more time and be able to actually start getting and maybe doing a bit of healing, chatting to your ex. We'll see. Our next question is from Darren. Hey, Darren.
Hi, panel. Do you think COP27 has been a success?
Do you think COP27 has been a success? The COP27 summit has been ongoing in Egypt and a deal has been reached with wealthy countries agreeing to pay... I say wealthy countries, I don't know if that includes us anymore. Anyway, agreeing to pay damages to poorer ones who have been hit by climate change. This has been hailed as a historic deal, but it seems that there was less progress on reaching an agreement to reduce the burning of fossil fuels. And Labour's Ed Miliband says governments have, quote, kicked the can down the road. What do you think?
I drive an SUV. So more, please. I think leaving it up to politicians might be a mistake. I think corporations have to step forward and make some commitments. Every time I recycle in the bin in our building, I think, is this really going to help? I feel powerless around it. You know, I do what I can. I don't have children because I have a future, and I'm trying to sort of, you know, I don't use less tanning oil. I don't know what we can do. I just think, you know, I might steal some stuff from this set because it's not being used and bring it home, use it, make it happen. I don't know, you know. I go to a co-op.
You are saving the planet.
Yeah, I don't wash my underwear for like 3 or 4 days. Sorry about that. So I do what I can.
That's good. What about you, Lewis? I know. Let's hear what comes out of your mouth. You're not going to recycle any jokes?
No, I don't.
Wow, I've never ever seen that. In the 20 years I've known you, silence coming out.
Here's what I'm going to say.
Oh, dear.
I'm going to say I don't care who cares about this, who listens to me and who hates me afterwards, and only if one person agrees with me. I am not discussing climate change because it's completely bogus.
OK, there comes Ofcom.
And I want to just say, it ranks up there with COVID as being bogus. And there's so many...
The host isn't here.
No, the truth is, here's the absolute truth. Yes, climate does change. People might be changing the climate, but it's such a non-issue, and you have so much more stuff, and and I personally do not believe in climate change. So if you want to unfriend me, if you want to boo, you can boo me.
No, I'm just going to move you to Bangladesh.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you something. When I was growing up, we used to hear at the Bangladeshi floods. They build mud huts in a river valley. I mean, right along the water. Most of the country is below. God bless those people. They're lovely people. But where they live was practically below sea level beforehand.
Yeah, but now it's moving to Pakistan and...
No, there's always been floods. There's been floods. I think there was a flood your people started, how many years ago with Noah?
With the Noah thing, right?
The Noah thing.
It's always the Jews' fault.
Nobody mentions that there's been floods since time immemorial.
OK, and that's what you want to go back to, is it?
No, I'm saying that's just what it's going to be. We're going to have floods, we're going to have hot weather. Every time it's hot, you're going to say, oh my God, it's climate change. Every time it's cold, you say, oh my God, climate change. Every time it rains, climate change. Enough already. It makes me scream. It is the stupidest thing.
It actually means more
world.
Survival in England and Wales, though. Because
yeah,
the number of deaths each year in the
warmer.
last 5 years have decreased in the winter because it's warmer here.
No, they killed everybody from the COVID.
All right.
Wow, we've broken a lot of rules just now.
But I am not a scientist or a virologist or a doctor, so you know.
Look, Lewis literally cannot spell his own name, so it's fine. Our final question for the moment is from Vary. Where's Vary? Oh, hey, Vary.
Hi. Will you be watching the new Mrs. Doubtfire musical?
Wow, well, this is a really interesting question. Will you be watching the new Mrs. Doubtfire musical? A musical version of the famous hit comedy Mrs. Doubtfire is heading to the West End. The story, of course, revolves around a divorced man, not Louis Schaefer, who disguised himself as a female housekeeper so he gets to spend more time with the kids. Not everyone will be going along, though, with some members of the trans community saying they will not be supporting the arrival of the musical in London and may even protest against it. Now, the first thing I'm going to say is we are very blessed here to have Scott Capurro, who was in the original Mrs. Doubtfire, and I believe we have it still. There he is.
There he is.
There
Look
he
how young
is.
I
Look how
am.
young
I'm
he
the
is.
one without the beard.
Wow.
I know, so sweet.
Oh, look at that.
We turned it
Look at
into
that.
one.
Round of applause.
You know, it was a great experience. The first feature film set I was on, being on with two other comedians, you couldn't have had better, really. And it was a very diverse crew in every way, filmed in San Francisco, with a lovely, open, generous man like Robin producing it. I don't know what more the trans community would want from a film, but anyway, it's not enough, you know. And I don't see the point of
Another picture
ruining.
there you are there.
Right.
You look pretty much the same. Your hair's a little bit
Look
grayer,
at my hairline. Oh my God.
but you look the same. That's amazing.
And I was a woman there, so
Yeah.
I've had it all done.
And look, Lewis is right next to you.
But you know, it was a great experience, and I think it spoke to a lot of people. And there would have been things that they could have done to the film, of course. Now, if they made it, to make it, I guess, more, I don't know, PC or more woke. But it was gorgeous at its time. It's still a lot of people's favorite film, and I'm sure the musical in the West End is fantastic. And I don't see the point of taking work away from actors, especially actors who dress up kind of like trans people do, to behave like someone else the way trans people do. So I just feel like it's all kind of just one big trans party. Why are they kind of
Absolutely.
speaking badly about it?
Lewis, this is really hard to get my head around. But I haven't seen. But if they were arguing that a trans person should pay this out, but really it's a man very consciously pretending to be a woman. A trans woman legally, or in their mind, is 100% a woman. So then that would be the inauthentic take on the
Well,
story.
this movie is not even about trans or anything. It's about a guy fighting to see his children.
Yeah.
And he's willing to do anything to get back into the marital home. He could have played, it could have been about him playing a chair or a sofa in that house with maybe an upholsterer showing him how to be an authentic chair.
You sound furniture phobic right now.
Yeah. And let me just say this about Scott Capurro. He's still as doable as he was back then. He's still, and that's why he's got this attitude. He's getting, because he knows he's a looker. And but I'm a looker. I've become a looker. Anyway, the point is, I will not see this, because anybody who has seen this film knows this is not a feel-good film. It is basically. They're to make a musical about this. It's a story about a guy who's been turfed out of his home because his wife...
Don't say tough.
Exactly, I'm funny. Okay. He's been kicked out of his home because his wife got tired of him. The 3 kids, wouldn't let him see the kids because she said he's a bad father, and so he has to basically lie to be with his own kids. This is not a happy.
I think you're taking it a bit seriously.
No, it is. Any man in my group of people who have problems with divorce
Lonely men.
have seen this movie.
Yes.
And it's like making a musical out of Schindler's List.
Oh, right.
Oh, my God.
That's what this
Making
is.
a mockery of your
Making a
heartache.
mockery.
Yes.
And then, so it's it's basically showing a man that he's not allowed to see his kids, while his wife, who's this dumpy house woman.
She's a 2-time Academy Award winner.
I don't care.
It's Sally Field.
Exactly. Sally Fields. Who does she end up with after she dumps Robin Williams, right? She ends up with James Bond. Pierce Brosnan. And I'm telling the women out there, no matter how beautiful you are with 3 kids, you ain't gonna get James Bond. This film is authentic. It is painful to watch. And I know you were in it, Scott, and you were the best part of the entire thing. But the truth in that movie, sorry for going on a tirade.
No, bring it on. It's great TV. I mean, I can imagine you at home in your underpants typing to your sort of old man incel group.
We are not incels. We can get girls.
But this,
We can get women.
You can fly to Thailand anytime, but this is a musical we're talking about, so it's going to be different from the film. It's meant to be more cheerful, I think.
Hey, well, how can you make it cheerful? The guy is denied seeing his children.
I feel like you're going to break into song any minute right now, actually.
Anybody under the age of... We have young people here. He doesn't know his own father. That's why he's looking at me. Saying, could this be my dad? Could this... Even that guy is thinking, could this be my dad?
I know my father. I wish I'd escaped him when I was a kid. He's still alive. he doesn't have COVID. The host of this show does, my father doesn't. The world is so upside down.
Do you know, I mean, also, but do you know anybody who's in the cast? I mean, someone playing Robin Williams' role.
It's a tough role.
That's
to
a
play.
really
That's
tough
gonna be really
role. And also the changeovers and
I think the protesting would just sell more tickets. You know, I do think when you try to tell people what to do in this country, from whatever perspective, from whatever prism, I think people just resist you. I just do. I think that's the way it is. Like all these protests that are happening for climate change, all these people that, I don't know if you know, but Gordon Ramsay's restaurant was shut down last night, and so the 3-star Michelin was shut down. Everyone was sent home because these climate changers came in with their own menus and ordered off their own menus, plant-based food. Wow. I know. And I think it just makes people want to, you know, go to Gordon Ramsay's restaurant where they can afford it or not, just to make a point.
Right. Well, look, I'm going to go and see it if I get free tickets. After the break, Canada has been discussing whether to introduce euthanasia. We'll be discussing the moral values involved. Don't go anywhere.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join me, Arlene Foster, for the briefing on GB News. Every Friday at 3 p.m, I'll give you all the latest political news and analysis, and we'll have robust live debate. To make sure that you're caught up on all of the biggest issues of the day, we'll bring on experts in their field. I'll ask the questions that you'd like to ask. We're not afraid to tackle discussions from all perspectives, including yours. Don't forget, the briefing with me, Arlene Foster, every Friday at 3 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me, noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
Welcome back. Controversial talks are taking place in Canada right now, with Parliament discussing whether disabled children could be euthanised by doctors. Now, this is part of Canada's assisted suicide scheme, known as medical assistance in dying. What a wonderful euphemism. Joining us now to discuss this is historian and journalist David Aldroyd-Bolt. David, tell us what medical assistance actually is then.
What it really means is that the Canadian state will pay for you to off yourself if you decide that your life has no value to live. When this was brought in first in 2015, there was there were two criteria. One was that the death must be reasonably foreseeable, and the other was that there must be some medical reason behind it why you would wish to end your life. Then 5 years later, in 2020, Bill C7 was introduced, which did away with both of those criteria. So essentially now in Canada, you could, if you were above the age of 18, apply to be paid for to be killed by the state, which the state had a great impetus to do, because it only cost them $2,300, whereas Canada has one of the lowest social care budgets in the world, so they were very much interested in pushing these costs down. And we saw, for instance, that the debate suggested that in the first 5 years of medical assistance in dying, MAID as it's known, they saved about $90 million, and that if they brought in these further reductions of criteria, there'd be another saving of $60 million. So a lot of the conversation in Canada has been about the medical savings here. There's been very little conversation about, for instance, that people who are long-term homeless are being pressured into this. There has been practically no discussion on Canada's main state broadcaster about any of the possible abuses of this system, nor of the fact that the legislation coming through will eventually allow for children aged 14 to 17 to euthanize themselves. This whole debate is being framed around lowering of costs and about freedom, a freedom of choice to euthanize yourself, to kill yourself.
So this, I mean, that's what they see it as, a fundamental human right, but really it's just for them to essentially save money.
Yes.
And what about the moral implications? Is anybody raising that?
Not very many, because a great deal of the broadcasting networks in Canada are funded by the state, and they are directly disincentivized from talking about these things. There is a great progressive movement that makes what progressive movement we have here look very timid. And within part of that progressive credo is the idea that everybody should have the right to die when they choose. And the fact that it is being used to euthanize people who are, frankly, able to carry on living if only they had some support, whether medical support or social support, is practically not discussed. And so when anybody in this country uses, as they very often do, advocates for euthanasia, use Canada as the example, people really need to be aware of what that means. And, for instance, when 2015, when this was brought into law by the Supreme Court specifically in Canada said that they did not give any credence to the slippery slope argument that the advocates against euthanasia were making. Well, we've been shown pellucidly over the past 7 years that not only is it a slippery slope, it's a slope into hell.
Wow. And do you think that that could end up impacting the UK in any way?
Well, I think it could, because parallels are often drawn between the English-speaking countries of the world and their social progression. So, you know, if something happens in the States or in Canada, Australia or New Zealand, there are very often arguments made by progressives here that, look, these are the other civilized English-speaking countries of the world, we should follow them. Well, perhaps people making those arguments should, A, look at the reality of Canada, and B, look at the other two countries where euthanasia is legalized and has been for quite some time, Belgium and the Netherlands. And in both of those countries, there is now practically no limit on the conditions under which you can euthanize yourself. And indeed, there has just, in October, there's been a case in the European Court of Human Rights. A Belgian man called Tom Mortier discovered in 2012 that his mother had been euthanized without any consultation with her family. She was 64 years old, had suffered from clinical depression.
Actually, we covered this on the show about a month ago.
He only found this out when his wife received a phone call saying, please come and collect your late mother-in-law's things. Wow. There are now discussions in the Netherlands that there should be no lower legal limit on the age at which children can be euthanized. And indeed, a Dutch campaigner said that he believes that by 2023, there will be absolutely no limit on this. The Canadian bill that is being discussed brings this to the front and centre. If parents have children who are found to have congenital diseases or diseases that would affect their quality of life, those children could be euthanized by their parents. This is infanticide being encouraged by progressives, so-called, in Canada.
I mean, it sounds unbelievable. It also has, I hate bringing up Hitler, but it's got that resonance there.
It's directly there, yeah.
Do you, though, think that there are conditions where people can take their own lives?
I've had this discussion many, many times with medical practitioners in this country, and they have all in their careers, whether they be long or short careers, have seen instances where people are really suffering at the end of life. And they make this case, I think, with a perfectly good conscience that that is inhumane. The problem is that in every single instance of euthanasia being legalised in any single country, these abuses occur. And there is practically nothing to stop them. I mean, for instance, there is always brought up here the idea that there would need to be two separate medical diagnoses confirming that that person is suffering greatly and therefore should be allowed to euthanize himself. This is the Belgian system. And indeed, that was the case. But in the most recent reforms to the Belgian law, though those two doctors may make this decision, the person carrying out the euthanasia, killing the patient at his or her request, can totally disregard that. So these legal safeguards that are put in place will never last. This is the same thing has happened in the Netherlands, the same thing has happened in Canada. Any legal safeguard will never be enough because the twofold campaign to have greater freedom to die, and of course the campaign saying this is actually saving money, though it will never be as overt as the former, will, I think, overcome any medical objections and will overcome any moral objections. This is a terrible, terrible thing that's happening in some of the most civilized and most developed countries in the world, and we here seem to be oblivious of it, despite the argument gaining more and more traction.
Because there is a euthanasia bill being discussed right now in Hollywood, right? Yeah?
Yes, in this private member's bill in the Scottish Parliament. Nicola Sturgeon has twice before voted against this, as did Ruth Davidson, then leader of the Scottish Conservatives. Ruth Davidson has subsequently said that she only voted against this out of, as she put it, cowardice. And Nicola Sturgeon has said that she is beginning to think twice about this. I do not think that this is something that Scotland alone can be allowed to make a decision upon. It's one of the great evils of devolution, that one part of the United Kingdom, as it's also doing with its self-identification bill for transgender people, could become, as it were, a haven for people from England, Wales and Northern Ireland. And I think once you start going down the route that you have fundamentally different ethical laws within parts of the United Kingdom, you fracture that kingdom beyond repair. And as a unionist, I don't want to see that. And I think, as moral beings, we should not want to see that. We should not want there to be one constituent part of the United Kingdom which has legalised death.
Yeah, we don't want Canada north of our border, if you've ever been to Canada. So that was an incredibly depressing but very, very interesting topic. I hadn't really read much about it until very recently, and it seems like it's another front line in the so-called being kind, but, with unbelievable ramifications. Thank you so much for coming in and talking to us about it.
Thanks, Josh.
Okay. After the break on Free Speech Nation, I dare say a few of us would like a drink now, and then, but we don't get our boozing subsidised by the state unless we get elected as an MP, that is. We'll see you shortly.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. There's never been a more interesting but also critical time in British politics, and I can't wait to bring you the biggest stories of the day with the best factual accuracy and also a few of my own opinions thrown in. We'll engage in passionate but always polite debate with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday, 10 till 12, on TV, on radio and online.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something weird happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky.
That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg.
And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak. Stop talking.
My God, we reached the end. I've never been early in my life. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
There we go, welcome back. Later in the show, I'm going to be churning into Agony Uncle with the help of my panel, Scott Capurro and Lewis Schaefer, to help you deal with your unfiltered dilemmas. Email us at gbviews@gbnews.uk and we'll try to answer your issues. Now on to reports that our hard-working MPs have been knocking back £250,000 worth of discounted booze, with taxpayers picking up the bill. An investigation revealed that just over £250,000 was spent in Parliament's canteens and bars from April 2021 to the end of March this year. With us now to talk about this story is Elliot Keck, of Taxpayers Alliance. Elliot, please tell us more about the story. And it sounds like pretty scandalous stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's been going on for years and years and years. Parliament have a range of bars and canteens that's entirely legitimate for them to have, and they're all heavily subsidised and paid for by the taxpayer, and they give a couple of reasons. One is an okay reason, one's not a very good reason at all. So one of the reasons that they give is that the staff work for the whole of Parliament, and therefore you don't need to absorb the staff costs into the cost of the canteen. That's kind of kept separate. And then the other one is that because these need to operate at all hours, they're inevitably going to make loss because they can't consider their opening hours in their making a profit. But the problem is that could apply possibly to food, but I'm not really sure that could apply to cheap booze, which quite frankly isn't actually necessary and which could be fully funded and even could make profit. So what we're looking at is prices, for example, £33 for an average bottle of champagne, £15 for the cheapest bottle of wine, and about £3.50 for a pint. And the total subsidy of food and drink is about £17 million over the last 3 years, an extraordinary amount of money.
Wow, yes. So, I mean, it's not just MPs, though, is it? That's one thing we do have to sort of say. It is people who work at Parliament, journalists and whatnot. I mean, there is an argument that we want our MPs to be drunk so that civil servants could just get on with actually running the country. And the other argument, of course, is it's drunk MPs brought down, arguably, the last Prime Minister, or the second. I mean, so many Prime Ministers now. But we had Pincher getting drunk. Was he drunk in Parliament? Is that where he was?
No, he
was out and
drunk
about
in Parliament. I don't know if he went drinking in Parliament before the final place of the with the incident. But I mean, listen, it's a large amount of money. And I think it's completely illegitimate. MPs should not be allowed to drink for cheap. You say it is open to other people. I'm not sure journalists necessarily also should be able to drink cheap on the public purse. But actually, a lot of the bars in Parliament are only available to MPs or to journalists. So the parliamentary staff, the contract workers, the repairmen, they may get access to some of the food, but they don't get access to a lot of the alcohol.
OK, and what has been the reaction to this report, then?
Well, it was the front page of the Daily Star. These stories always do well because, there is the hypocrisy. And this comes at the exact moment when alcohol duty was decided not to freeze alcohol duty. So the very people that have decided not to freeze alcohol duty and that will be putting pennies on top of pints when they're already going up are the very people who are actually shielded from these prices because they can get a pint for £3.50 at their bar in Parliament.
I mean, MPs would, of course, argue that they work very hard, that as they are working strange hours, they do deserve a pint like the rest of us.
Yeah.
I mean, do you think that is it just a case of making the pint's just a more equitable, like £7, whatever we pay in London now?
Well, I mean, if you go to the pubs around in Westminster, a pint is £6-7. Of course, if MPs want to drink, that's entirely their right. They can get drunk at any point of the day if they want, as long as they're doing their duties and they're doing them to the best of their abilities. But they shouldn't be paying £3.50. They should be paying the full price.
And do you know, can they claim any of that money back on their expenses?
No, they can't.
Okay,
They can't claim money.
so there's not that. It's not that.
That would add in.
That would add, because I did read a thing about how they're claiming back heating and whatnot.
Yeah, so that's related to if you have MPs are often required to have a second home because they need a home in their constituency, which can be, it can be in the Outer Hebrides, and they also need a place in London. So you can claim some costs back on the heating there.
So MPs are basically very warm, very drunk, all at our expense.
Yeah.
Now, what was your reaction to the budget this week?
Yeah, so I mean, this was the Chancellor basically announcing that we're going to have years and years of more misery. And when people think of inflation, when people think of the cost of living crisis, we think of fuel and food. But actually, one of the biggest costs that most people face is taxation, and the plans are just to increase that ever higher.
And so, just tell us a bit about what the job of the Taxpayers Alliance is. Like, who pays for you? What is the actual purpose that you're trying to do? Just hold the MPs to account?
Well, hold all public sector bodies to account, whether it's the police forces, Whitehall, NHS, councils, and we basically look into areas where the government and public bodies are wasting money, for example, on a £17 million subsidy for food and drink in Parliament, and then we try and hold them to account and reveal it in the press and come on shows like GBNews to talk about it, really.
And what have there been other egregious examples that you've found at the moment about the way that our money is being spent? I mean, I think the interesting thing is that as things are getting tougher for more people, I think a lot of people, before it seems very abstract, like where your money goes and whatever, but as that belts are getting tightened and you start looking at less and less, more and more of your money being taken, you're used to a certain amount, but suddenly it feels more offensive. You go, wait a minute, I'm getting less money now, and I want to know that money, if we're paying into a system, that it is being spent the correct way. Do you think that they are overall, or do you think there's just immense waste going on?
I think there's a significant amount of waste going on. I mean, inevitably in large organisations you can't cut out all waste, but there are some areas where it's really, really inexcusable.
And what is the best way of doing it? Of course, part one is going to be calling attention to it, which is as you do. Is it a case of them actually implementing these changes? Does anything ever get done?
You just need a better attitude within the public sector. You need public sector bosses who actually really, really care about the fact that this money that they get and this money that they get to spend is coming from taxpayers, and it's coming from taxpayers who have to pay it, under the threat of imprisonment if they don't. So you need an attitude change, I think, among a lot of the public sector.
I guess, when it's not your money. And also, I think when it's so piecemeal, because when you're talking of billions of pounds, you're just like, oh, well, look, we wasted another 100 grand. What does that mean? Whatever. But holding them to account. Has there been any movement at all in terms of raising prices for the bar? Is that the one bit that they won't touch?
Well, it's
they're like the rest of the NHS. Don't worry about them. But let's keep our pint cheap. £3.50.
Yeah, I mean, when VAT restored to the full rate of hospitality, prices went up marginally in Parliament for the various canteens. But you're still looking at incredibly low prices. You're looking at £5 for fish and chips, for example, compared to £18 in the nearby establishments. So you're still looking at very, very low prices. OK, well, looks like I'm going to try and be an MP. Thank you very much for coming on. I really appreciate that conversation. OK. After the break, Donald Trump has had his Twitter account reinstated by Elon Musk. Wow, there we go. Some people there letting us know how they feel about that. Certainly going to be entertaining. We'll be talking about this, why this might not actually bring him back to the platform. Don't go away. See you in a second.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
for helping our great nation.
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England,
Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV.
On radio.
and online.
we're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Steyn. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dubes & Co. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Dubes & Co.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. We've been discussing Lewis's tassels on his shoes there. Elon Musk is back at it again on Twitter. This time he lets users vote whether or not to bring back former US President Donald Trump back to the social media platform. Over 15 million people voted, and I think a few bots supposedly as well. Trump was narrowly reinstated, winning 51.8% of the vote. As Leo Kerr said, it's Brexit all over again. However, Trump claims he won't be returning to the platform. Let's have a listen.
Twitter, you see what's going on. It may make it, it may not make it, but the problems are incredible. The engagements are negative, and you have a lot of bots and you have a lot of fake accounts, which I think they should get on. But Truth Social has taken the place for a lot of people, and I don't see them going back onto Twitter.
He's definitely coming back to Twitter. So, Scott, are you hoping to hear from the man himself?
I miss him. I do. I miss the jokes. I miss Melania. Free Melania. And I think, you know, it's supposed to be a platform of free speech, so why not let him? You can't keep him off. You have to let him back on, and then he'll just burn himself. I mean, the Republican Party's done with him anyway. They've had enough. They've moved on. Yeah, they've moved on to the governor of Florida, younger, prettier wife, if you can imagine, and money will buy you a lot. And also, I feel like, Trump just created too much chaos during his presidency. Then they don't want that again, and they don't know how to deal with him.
And they keep losing.
They do. They've lost twice in a row.
The right are pragmatic. If you say anything about them, whether they're
blaming him
or over there.
For all the losses he's blamed. They've got to blame somebody. And there's also, a little civil war within their own party. I think they can't bring themselves to support him, and I think they're kind of afraid of him. And I think Elon Musk doesn't support him politically necessarily. I just think he and Trump are the same person in a way.
Well, also, he's a business person. He knows that Trump is going to bring people to
they're populists, so they don't really care. They're like Lewis. They just latch their rope onto the fastest running wagon. And I think they're just using one another to gain attention. That's what freaks me about Elon Musk. Not the politics, whatever they are, or the money, any of it. It's just what an angry... disappointed child he seems like, and how much trouble he can cause just because he's angry that day, just because his parents didn't love him enough, or for whatever reason.
Now, I've actually got a bit lost. Who are you talking about there? Trump
Elon Musk.
or Elon
yeah,
Musk?
exactly. Exactly. That's why I think they've been drawn to one another. I think Musk's just as fascinated by Trump, by all the attention and all the, again, chaos he can create with very little intelligence or experience in politics.
Well, interestingly, people would argue about both of them, actually, and I've seen various threads talking about how Elon Musk, what he's done is actually kind of brilliant, and he's emptied out a lot of work, got rid of a lot of his costs. He's kept the people who are committed to his vision now, and there are certain business programs, and this is how they would go about it. There are more people on Twitter, supposedly, than have been for a long time. So they are, and some people would say with Trump that he was a genius in his own right, and
very limited vocabulary.
Do you know what? I don't see the anger with the guy. The guy is an amazing human being. He wasted $44 billion on an asset that's probably worth like $2 or $3 billion. I mean, it's a tremendous wastefulness. It's like this micro. It does nothing. And
like voting for the Greens.
Yeah, and he is trying to make a profit out of this thing. And if it takes getting people into an argument over Donald Trump, he's going to do it. I don't see it anger. I don't even see it as cynical. I just see it as business. He's trying to make it go.
Well, I think, Scott, you made a very interesting point, and I take this to Lewis to then destroy it.
Yeah.
But what you were saying about giving people their voice, I mean, we're, Free Speech Nation, that's the title of the show. By giving him his voice, the argument is that he will hang himself eventually.
Well, he has his voice, and he has his own social media platform. And I think that Musk needs in Trump as much as Trump may need Musk. And I think you're right. I think it's a failed business model. It's not going to last much longer, although Twitter's been failing for a long time. What bothers me about Musk is things he's done in the past, like about those boys in the cave, or the way he treats his employees, or tells them to buckle down and work for less but work harder. I just think there's something wrong in the way he responds to I don't think he understands that his behavior affects other people.
And his knee-jerk responses that arguably, even with the business stuff, like the way that he responded to Kathy Griffin, like he couldn't take a joke. And that's a terrible quality to reveal of anybody.
I mean, who knew?
No. I'm not going to tolerate this.
Come on.
The guy is an amazing human being. He inherited an organization that had 11,000 people working there, and he's managed to fire basically peaceably about 8,000 of them. And he thinks he can get on with this organization with 1,000 people. So that's what he's doing. He's telling people, you're going to have to work hard. You want to work hard? You have your job. Of course he's going to try to weed out the lazy.
And there's arguments for the veracity of that. But the point is, what do you think? He can't take a joke. Kathy Griffin revealed comics. That's what comics do. And at the moment that he was ridiculed, he banned her.
No, he had to do that because
by the way, I should point out she is back now.
Yeah, she's back gone for a week. And so, I think what he's trying to do is he does, I don't know whether he's left or right. He says he's a free speech absolutist. Well, you don't take a vote on whether somebody should be on a free speech site. You just say we're accepting everybody. And that's my philosophy, my personal philosophy, which I don't know if you care about, but have everybody on. And Trump might kill himself. But then again, Trump is.
How do we start talking about that?
Because he said he's going to. You said Trump is going to kill it, not kill himself. Like
burn out.
He's going to burn out. Okay. He's going to expose himself if you give him enough rope.
You're mixing up the euthanasia story in Canada. He's not moving to Canada.
I just feel like people without a sense of humor are very dangerous.
Yes.
Like Putin, what he did in the Ukraine, because. Louis C.K. was meant to open in Kiev that week, and he invaded. As it turns out, Putin doesn't like Louis C.K., so all this happened. I worry, when that actor took a swing at that comedian at the Academy Awards.
Will Smith.
The world shivered, I think, because it terrified. He liked the joke, and then the wife got in the ear, and then Mrs. Doubtfire happened. But almost. Yeah. But I just feel like, if Elon Musk is as smart as he is, but he can't see what a joke he's become to most of the public, that's dangerous.
Oh, I don't think he's become a joke. I don't think so. I think what he's doing is he's paid $44 billion for something worth $4 billion, let's just say. That's a huge
waste of money.
Yes, it is. And he's trying to build it back. He's trying to build it back.
But that doesn't make him a genius then.
Do you know what? It does make him a genius because geniuses make mistakes. Look at Louis Schaefer coming here to this country. You're not going to hold that against me, Josh. I mean, yeah, he makes mistakes and he overcomes it.
Okay.
That's what we do in America. He's a great American.
Well, let's talk about making mistakes and overcoming them. Trump, he's back in the race.
Yeah.
Think he has any chance?
I didn't think he had a chance.
Yeah, true.
6 years ago, and I don't think you can rule the guy out. The guy is an amazing, amazing human being. I personally am from New York. I don't like him. I grew up with him. Don't like him. But he did a job which he created a revolution in America, which this country needs, where suddenly the people are divided. They know exactly what team they're on, and they're fighting for it.
I think they had that a few years ago here, too.
No, I don't think that they did. They thought that they did, and they thought it was the Brexit team, and then there was the... But you take a look at what Boris Johnson has done. He's basically sold out that part of the party. So the Conservative Party, and some of the stories that we're going to be dealing with, possibly, are where the Conservative Party are supporting the forces of evil. So they've stopped being...
Who are the forces of evil?
Forces of evil are people who believe...
Doubtfire.
People who believe that climate change is a real...
Oh, my God, forces of evil.
Yes, forces. Yes, it's a force of evil.
People, a.k.a. people trying to save our future.
Well, you could say the same thing about everything that people who are on that side believe in, and which is they think that they're doing the right thing, and sometimes they are. And I think that's really important, to do the right thing. But sometimes, just because someone says, I think this is the right thing, I'm doing it for the right moral reasons, that doesn't mean that it is the right thing.
I agree with you. We all like to think that we're right and that we're moral and we're good human beings.
Yes.
Absolutely. Scott, what do you think about Trump being back in the race?
I like that he's amoral. The best time of my life was when I was breaking the law in cars at night with married men. And I think,
in Doha.
Yeah, in Doha. Yeah. I think Trump's going to win in 2 years. I think we should brace ourselves. He's going to be president again. I think Biden fell off the bike in more ways than one. Biden cannot keep up with Trump's pacing. And all the Democrats do is watch the Republicans move quicker and quicker and quicker ahead of them. Now that Pelosi's gone out of the House, they've lost all that power. They will stymie anything that Biden tries to do in the next 2 years, and then they'll just pitch forward with whatever they've got. And honestly, Trump doesn't need them. His party has disowned him, but he never needed them. He never liked them in the first place.
Well, I don't think the British people understand that there is no party in America. It's all individual voting habits.
We've got to leave it there. Coming up after the break, I'm going to tell you all why I'm particularly pleased to have a chance to host this show. See more questions with the audience as well. Thank you very much. Yes.
On Mark Dolan tonight, in my big opinion, the return of Donald Trump to Twitter is annoying all of the right people. Are the Tories risking a Brexit betrayal with rumoured plans for a Switzerland-type deal? Do this and the Tories are toast forever. My Mark Meets guest is Brexit-supporting former Labour MP Lord John Mann, who conducted a war against Jeremy Corbyn and won. Plus my all-star panel, politics legend Anne Widdecombe and former England manager Big Sam Allardyce live on the show. Bring a bottle and I'll see you at 9.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join me, Arlene Foster, for the briefing on GB News. Every Friday at 3 p.m, I'll give you all the latest political news and analysis, and we'll have robust live debate. To make sure that you're caught up on all of the biggest issues of the day, we'll bring on experts in their field. I'll ask the questions that you'd like to ask. We're not afraid to tackle discussions from all perspectives, including yours. Don't forget, the briefing with me, Arlene Foster, every Friday at 3 p.m. on GB News.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. There's never been a more interesting but also critical time in British politics, and I can't wait to bring you the biggest stories of the day with the best factual accuracy and also a few of my own opinions thrown in. We'll engage in passionate but always polite debate with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday, 10 till 12 on TV, on radio and online.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. It's a bit surreal finding myself actually sitting here because it was only 1 year ago that I was sitting where you are, watching as a fan of this show. I tuned in every week. I absorbed Andrew Doyle's polemic as he took these big, complicated concepts and ideas and somehow articulated them so that even I, whose reading material mostly has Wolverine or Batman in the title, could grasp the very nub of a topic. I classified myself as part of the silent majority. I'd spoken up about anti-Semitism on the far left, but there were other trajectories and developments I could see taking hold in our society that were having a negative impact on freedom of speech, women's rights, children's safety, scientific truth, tolerance. And it all seemed quite complicated, especially as it was mostly propagated by friends and colleagues who I was and am politically aligned with. And it was all under the umbrella of kindness and equality. Hey, I'm a pretty good person, aren't I? Don't I like kindness and equality? Except I could see people being not very kind at all, especially to those who merely pointed out that some of the outcomes were, in fact, the very opposite of equality. As the silent majority, I watched J.K. Rowling bravely put her head above the parapet and politely ask for debate. As the silent majority, I watched as she received death threats and rape threats and attempts to destroy her reputation. As the silent majority, I watched other female authors and academics and activists hounded from their jobs. As the silent majority, I was scared. Scared of losing friends, work, scared of people thinking that I wasn't kind, that I didn't want equality, scared of having to learn more, scared of not knowing enough. Fear choked my voice and it kept me silent. But those people who had found their voice, mostly women, kept going, kept fighting, kept arguing against those who continually refused to see their point of view and instead abused them for the crimes of daring to disagree with theirs. Then Maya Forster won her tribunal and more people found their voice. As Millicent Fawcett wrote, courage calls to courage everywhere, and its voice cannot be denied. And if I may be so bold as to do a bit of mansplaining on this famous feminist quote, perhaps everywhere also includes inside of us. The chain of bravery that flows from one person to the next, that we see in its purest form at the moment in Iran, is forged within. It's from within that when the voice first speaks, it then cannot be denied. Liking a tweet, sharing an article, buying a book, talking to friends in the pub, family on a camping trip, watching a TV show, sending a message last year to the host, who you kind of know, about something you think he might be interested in. Each action inspires another. The silent majority finds its voice. We're living in and fighting to maintain a free speech nation. So to those out there still trying to find your voice, I just want to say, It only takes the smallest of sounds to start building a chorus. And who knows, in a year, when Andrew next loses his voice, I hope you too will have found yours, and then maybe you could be sitting here. And I can get back to reading the X-Men. Okay, right. Let's get some more questions from the audience. Our first question is from Piotr. Piotr, is that right?
Yes, that's me.
Brilliant. Hello.
Hello. It's talking about protecting women, really transphobic.
Is talking about protecting women really transphobic? This is a report in The Telegraph. It claimed that staff at the Ministry of Justice have been told they should not use the terms gender critical and protecting women and girls. The officials were given a list of so-called coded language which contained 35 phrases which it said were, quote, turning what would be considered overt discrimination into overt behaviour. Wow. Well, this is a pretty incredible letter that went out there. What do you think, Scott?
I tried to read the article, but I don't subscribe to the Telegraph, so it wouldn't let me get through it. But you know, I know that this idea that the definition of women, of what a woman is, that very definition seems confusing to people running for office or, you know, appealing to be a Supreme Court justice. So it's not up to me to kind of contradict them. But I know what a woman and a man is. I don't really have a problem with the terms. And I think women need to be protected and defended. I grew up in a single mother home. I think they pour a lot of responsibility on women. They still do, and they expect a lot back with very little protection. So I think we have to be very cautious and careful.
Absolutely.
For women in this culture.
And Lewis,
and men are creepy, by the way.
Yeah. Boo. Boo.
And speaking of creepy men,
Boo.
Oh, sorry, mate. No, he's not creepy.
I mean, it is true,
to me, but I'm not a woman. Lewis, did you manage to read the article?
I did. I did manage to read the article. I
You
feel like
subscribe
I've
to the
done more.
Telegraph?
What?
You read the Telegraph?
I know you find. Yeah, I'll subscribe to it.
All right.
I mean, I found a way to read it, and I read through the entire thing, and it's actually, it was really interesting because the Telegraph, it's completely misstated the entire situation, which it made it seem like the Ministry of Justice was sending out this information to the prisons, and then the prisons had to act on this, and this is kind of going against the conservative ethos, what's going on. But the truth is, it was just a couple of people working at the separately who sent it out on their own.
Well, so a couple of this is the diversity part of one of the prisons. I think the prison service, who they earn about over 30 grand a year, and they sent it to the Ministry of Justice with their list of all this stuff.
Yeah, but acting independently.
Well, the point is it's coming from within government and they're sending it
It's coming from within...
I think it's to 5,000 people who work for us, essentially, have now been sent this email. If they aren't up on these matters, then they will take this stuff as truth, and that's how this stuff propagates. So I found it incredibly dangerous, and what they haven't said is they're saying we're going to look at how... in the future, how people have access to all these emails and stuff. What they haven't said is we're actually going to send out a counter email to say that people who are gender critical actually doesn't mean that at all. I mean, this stuff that they sent out was just pure propaganda.
Yes, and so shouldn't there be heads to roll? There were people who basically hacked into the prison service email list.
Well, they work for them. They get paid by taxpayers' money.
Yeah, but they don't have authorization to send that kind of a formal document that makes it seem like it's a fait accompli that you can't use the word gender critical. That's a French word. And two French words. And so
it was, I mean, it was amazing, some of the stuff in the letter. It was like saying that attracted to the same sex, I don't know why I'm looking at you, but Mrs. Doubtfire, was actually transphobic because it was like a sort of dog whistle that people use or whatever, as opposed to people who are just attracted to the same sex. It was kind of amazing to see these things that you see online placed into an official document, like somehow that made it real.
But Josh, it wasn't an official document. It was made to look like an official document. It didn't have the authorization from the Department of Justice. It was some people working...
But it did have authorization from people working in the government. That's my point.
How many people work in the government in this country? There are billions of people working in the...
But if you do work for, say, a prison system, you receive an email like that, and it looks vaguely official, then you assume, because of all the stuff going on social media and all the things you're soaked with every day around the subject, and you assume you're meant to follow these rules.
And I'm with you, Scott. I get many, many official emails from Nigeria, from the government from those people. I don't get mad at the government of Nigeria because some guy has sent me an official looking email.
Right. But you don't work for the government of Nigeria either, as far as I know, right?
I mean, I think the reason why this story I find so amazing is that it felt like we were moving beyond this stuff. Now, if that had happened a couple of years ago, that's how we got into the situation that we're in now, is that these documents were sent out, that people with a very clear ideology that they were pushing sent these documents out to people in the government. Lots of Tories who are running our country at the moment read them and went, well, I want to be a good guy, I want to be a good woman, so yeah, I'm just going to go along with this, and haven't questioned it. And now we find ourselves in this position now where this ideology has taken hold. The fact that these documents are still going out, even as we're so much more aware of the issues, that's what I find.
And then a 19-year-old university student sticks a fondue fork in your neck, which is having to meet at a dinner party, practically. Because I said, oh, I know what a woman is, and I told her what a woman was. And she reached across the table and grabbed for a fork, and she was ready to... Really, seriously, yeah, because she's
you're
not
delicious.
I'm covered in cheese, and she was disgusted by the idea that men and women are different.
I'm disgusted by fondue.
Yeah. So there's the question.
Needless to say, that kind of mentality kind of soaks in, doesn't it? And before you know it, it separates the generations as well. I'll be 60 in a couple of weeks, and I feel when I perform. Thank you. When I perform in front of a gay audience recently in Paisley. It's hard to tell the gays from the cave paintings, but when I was performing in front of them, I felt like they were in their 20s and they were ready to kill me. It's just there was so much seething anger about whatever I said.
Yes.
I couldn't grasp what they were so displaced about. And then afterwards, they told me, the punchlines thing. It's like you just sound like our dirty uncle.
Yeah.
I mean,
the silence.
Seriously.
Well, do you know what the scary thing is? You're basically taking my act.
Yeah. I'm making money with it.
Yeah.
At least you guys have an act.
Yes.
The dirty uncle act. Can you imagine Scott Capurro, the dirty uncle?
Made it marketable.
Yeah.
Our next question's from William. Hey, William.
Should we take down all photos of old white men?
Okay, should we take down all photos of old white men?
I've been clearing my internet cache.
As someone who is becoming an old
When you
white
say
man.
old, what's old, though, now? Because I'm going to be 60. What could old
Well, there we go. Well, look, this is a reference to the painting by well-regarded Dutch painter Rijn Doel. I think that's actually quite a nice picture, which was hung up at Leiden University in the Netherlands, but has now been taken down, apparently, after a student complained. Let me say that again. A student complained. One student was enough for this art to be removed. What do you think, Scott?
What was the complaint? I don't know. I don't get what the complaint was.
Because it was a picture of old white men.
Oh, all men in the picture. Yeah. Well, how do they know they're all men? Have they asked them what their identity is? Have they given those?
It was also like this picture was probably drew about 50 years ago, where they aged quicker. They were probably all like 25.
Yeah. I'm shocked and say, yes, I know what you mean. Another comedy club I played last week, someone sent an email, and the owner of the club sent it to me, and it was just one person. My brother's trans, and he made a trans joke, and it ruined our night. So there's 280 people, there's one person, so I had to get involved. I was asked to apologize.
Did you?
Absolutely not.
Yes.
No, I don't. No,
absolutely not.
No, and I don't. When I see something I don't like, I leave, or I don't go back to watch it or stare at it or get angry about it.
You don't hang it on your wall.
No,
what about you, Lewis? Are you going to take down your photos in your house?
Well, I mean, I think it does trigger people, pictures of old white men. Because I see those guys and I think to myself, they're making a living. They look like successful. They got enough money to afford a cigar. And I think that picture's really interesting because I think it wasn't done as like praise of these people. It wasn't like the old great masters doing pictures of the wise men of Amsterdam, whatever. Remember those pictures? I don't know, not the wise men, but some amazing pictures where they made it seem like these are really amazing people. These guys, they look a fat, podgy, they look a bit dim.
They look in control, though.
Well, you assume they're in control because who else had control except men back then? And things were better.
Lewis.
Are you going to apologise for that? No.
I will apologise.
What, for accuracy?
I'm not like,
there it is.
I'm
We
not
can
like,
see it there. They look. I mean, this could be. They look very lost in They're sort of like, should we let the UK back into the EU?
Yeah.
What are they thinking there?
I think
they look tired, but it's hard running the world.
Didn't the woman who complained about this says it needed some kind of statement under it to explain what it was? So maybe that's what...
This is called a hairpiece.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I've been to Frida Kahlo's house. How many unibrows can you look at? At least those guys bothered plucking their eyebrows. You know, that's one thing.
Thank you for noticing.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Our next question's from Brian.
So, is drinking milk on a date a massive turnoff?
Yes. Is drinking milk on a date a massive turnoff? Now, this was a major discussion on Mumsnet after one of the users described a date they went on. All went well initially, as she described the man as being very attractive, but a delight turned to despair, or sour, when he decided to order a glass of milk. The Mumsnet user wrote, "I've honestly never come across someone doing that in a restaurant, and I just think it's really odd, and it really put me off." Well, Scott.
I know exactly what she means. I'm totally with her. It depends on the milk. If the milk has to be organic, raw, and unhomogenized, and cooked with a bit of turmeric in it, then that's fine. But just milk from any cow, it's just no discretion. It's just, I mean, you'll drink anything, you'll put anything in your mouth at that point. So I would have walked away from the table, seriously. I just couldn't have done it.
Have you ever drunk milk, Lewis, at a date?
Well, I think if you drink milk at a date with a single mother, I think it's telling her something. I think...
What precisely is that, Lewis?
And I think it is. It obviously is a single mother. I mean, I think women have gotten so
Why is it
bad.
a single mother? There's one thing there that indicates it's a single mother.
It's called Mumsnet.
Oh, yeah.
It is called Mumsnet.
You know what?
You hope she's a single
You're like
mother.
Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah. And the fact is that I can see, I'll take the woman's side of it, is that women like strong men. And it's a bit...
Yeah, but...
A bit sissy. You're saying a bit sissy.
I say it's not that. I mean, look, we got Leo Kearse on Headliners. He drinks like he brings a part.
Exactly.
I think it's a very masculine thing. Like,
no,
I'm going to make my bones strong.
No, that's his trope. That's his publicity that he's doing. But
really?
at the end of the day, women like a strong man. They don't want a guy drinking a glass of milk. They
want a bourbon. They want the guy drinking a bourbon, and they want him to maybe slap around a bit. And then is that what you're saying? That's where you're going with this.
Or it could go the other way. They went on this date, and he meets her, and he realizes, holy cow, I don't like this girl. You know how men can be. And how do you get rid of a girl? You just drink a glass of milk. You can't say, I don't want to see you anymore, I don't like you anymore. You can't ghost them. They get really touchy about that. So if you drink a glass of milk, the girl's going to think...
Who knew that was the way out?
There we go.
What a strategy.
If I only spent more time on the whole incel online thing, Lewis.
Sorry.
That would help me.
It's actually best. The best trick that I use is to be gay.
All right.
To attract them, or
it's just turn gay at that moment.
And how do you indicate that? Order a glass of milk?
By being with a guy the very next step.
You wait a day.
Just to avoid the acrimony and the anger.
I mean, now we know how your marriage ended.
Yeah, a lot of photos of old white men doing some stuff we don't want to see.
We don't want to know what Leo Schaefer's.
Wow. And what about white Russians? Is that allowed?
Sounds racist.
That's actually.
Say that anymore.
You know what? That's actually more.
Sissy. More sissy.
More sissy, yeah. I'm not saying it's gay. It's just more sissy.
Yeah. Baileys? Well, let's go through which drinks you're allowable in your...
Yeah, what are macho and what are macho?
Anything that has any kind of sweetness to it.
Coca-Cola?
If it's Coca-Cola and rum and Coke, I think that's all right, I would say.
All right.
Okay, but if you add sugar to something, if your drink is not full strength...
Right. You and your high boundary.
I think people understand that. They understand what drinking is all about. They know that there are certain drinks.
By the way, his little advice: if you do want a date to end early, just tell him that you don't believe in global warming. They'll be done.
Anything in a glass with a kind of that kind of shape, with a little thing, is
milk doesn't come in a martini glass. Where are you from?
Okay, fine. Our final question is from Charles. He's got some
Good
milk.
evening.
Okay.
Is it time we replaced all men with man-shaped pillows?
Well, maybe let's replace Lewis with man-shaped pillow. Is it time we replaced all men with man-shaped pillows? This week has seen the launch of a new product called the Loving Bear Puffy. There it is.
Ooh.
Yes, for just £135, women, or men of course, can buy this glorious bed companion. It is 5 foot 7 inches tall, the shape and figure of a human with the head of a teddy bear and the hands of a very long... actually, let's not look at those hands too closely there. That is quite unnerving. Would you buy one of these?
It looks like Putin a little bit.
Yes. Ironically, if he was riding himself.
Right.
That's how it...
So the answer is yes, I would buy one. I want to have him near me so I can keep an eye on him. I have a rather hairy husband who is more than enough to hold on to.
Okay.
I think if I brought that home, he'd be offended.
You think he'd be
I
jealous?
think he'd be bothered. You want to know what's going on. Yeah. I've tried to introduce people into the relationship, but he's not. He won't go for it. Why is that, Lewis? What's your secret? How do you... All the group sex you've had in your life. How are you organized? I can't...
I don't think bears count.
Right.
I'm still hoping for one.
How do you feel about this bear?
I feel it's like one of these typical stories because a lot of men working at this business, this GB News, and it's kind of like
That's not true. There's a lot of women who work here.
There is a lot.
I say it's 50% women.
There is women. But let me stand up for women. I don't believe this. Women are desperate, but they're not that desperate. They haven't reached male-level desperation, where anything that even has the vague shape of a woman that they will do horrible things.
This is the thing that I thought was that what was quite telling about this story is that men in this sort of supposed replacement theory, go for these kind of sex dolls that essentially look like women, function as sexual objects. And women, when they want a man replacement, are essentially looking for hugs.
A hug, yeah, they want a hug. They want a bit of warmth in bed at night.
Yeah, they're not looking for some sort of anatomically
They want the pretense that someone else is there, whether it's a person or whatever it is, just a lump. They make body-sized pillows that are very popular. So there's no point why, there's no reason why that couldn't become very successful, I think. And in the gay, in the gay community, we have bears in the gay community. That's a big hairy guy. Yeah. And then we have, we have cubs. Cubs are slender, younger, hairy guys, which you were 30 years ago before. And then an otter is a slender, younger cub.
Okay.
Yeah. With less body hair.
Okay, fine. I don't know.
So we have all this already.
Okay, so you don't think it comes from? You don't think they're appropriating the?
I don't mind. I'll be bothered when I see a wolf. Because a wolf is a bear with AIDS, and that's only for Lewis.
God. We have learned so very, very much. Okay. After the break on Free Speech Nation, The Crown is back on our TV screens and causing controversy once again. Harmless fun or exploitative trash? We'll discuss after the break.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today. I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me, noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me! And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Cool. Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. That's where we are. Netflix drama The Crown is back for a 5th season and has had plenty of viewers up in arms. The streaming giant has always stressed that it is a drama rather than a factual account of the royal family. But as we move closer and closer to the present day, the story seems to be arousing more and more controversy. Joining us now is Thomas Mace Archer Mills from the Monarchist Society. Hello, Thomas Mace Archer Mills. What a great name, and unsurprising that you are from the Monarchist Society. So why are so many people complaining about The Crown?
Well, the problem is, it used to be entertainment, but people, especially younger people, are not seeing it as entertainment. They're seeing it as a look back into history of what factually had happened. So they're getting a little bit confused. And we mostly think that young people might have it together, but we live in a very disposable society right now, and young people really just don't give a fig about the truth. They actually care about what they see and make up their own minds, whether it's real or not.
So you think this is why people are getting so worked up? Because, I mean, it does very clearly state that it is a dramatized series of events.
But it all depends. Because we had Dame Judi Dench with her campaign for a statement before saying that this is fake, it's fabricated, which is true. But when you watch television now, when they're doing the adverts, there isn't a disclaimer. There isn't anything. It's only when you watch it. And what bothers me, and it should actually really bother the majority of this nation, is that young people 18 to 24 years old are actually coming out in droves and saying, well, not even 30% of us support the Crown. And I'll tell you why. Well, that's because I watched season 5. And oh my gosh, I don't think the king should be king, and what they did to Diana and all of this. So this country, we lived through this 25 years ago. And most of these young people, they weren't even born then. So try to ask people to do research, especially young people. They'd rather just watch something rather than read and actually really delve into the facts and the truth of the situation. So when we read the BBC report last week, the person said, no, I've watched The Crown. It showed me just how horrible the king and queen are. I don't think they should be the king and queen. And thank you to the Crown. Oh my gosh. I absolutely had a slight coronary, and I'm sitting there and I'm saying, if these are the people who are eventually going to leave this country, the United Kingdom is really in a quandary.
I mean, no spoilers. I think I remember what happens. But are there any events in the show that you find particularly distasteful?
Well, I find the whole thing distasteful, but that's just me. But when we look at what's being put out there for entertainment, I don't think that private phone calls that were illegally really taken by the media should have been included. We know what happened. This is what we're looking at is a very brand new monarchy. We have a new king, a new queen. I'm really just upset that the timing of season 5, we just lost Her Majesty, the late Queen. And I really think if people are going to be looking at what Netflix is putting out and actually misconstruing it for the truth and actually taking away from this fabricated piece of cinematographic work, it's going to cause a lot of problems, I think, going forward, because the young people, if they don't attach any sort of value to something, they throw it out. We're a disposable society now. And if they're not feeling any sort of affiliation with or a value on the monarchy, eventually it could come up to be questioned. And they wouldn't have a problem, I think, looking towards abolition.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned the Queen, because I would argue that certainly the first series of The Crown sort of set up in some ways this, it's not a myth because we know it's true, but the idea of her sacrifice and what she gave for this country. So...
yes, it is.
So in that way, you could argue that it did good for the monarchy.
Well, it can be yes and it can be no, especially when we look at what happened in Aberfan in Wales, and people didn't really understand why the Queen waited. And when we look at the director, we look at the writers, they are Republicans. And I think a lot of those earlier seasons did depict the royal family as aloof, not caring, self-obsessed, only concerned about themselves. And the Queen has never been that way. So I did take umbrage with that.
The Queen has never been that way, but have other members of the royal family been that way?
No. Well, sometimes, I'm not going to say any names, he's been through enough. But one who is, well, we'll talk about Prince Andrew if you want. But when we look at it, there is a lot of good that has come out because it does show the hard work that the Queen had done. It showed the sacrifices of her and Prince Philip, but also the younger children and Princess Anne. I can't say enough about that woman. What a fantastic asset to this country, and the support that we saw from her during the funeral, not only with her mother, but also her brother, the king. So there are some good attributes that have come from the crown, but things have changed since season 4. They've changed in the country, they've changed in the national psyche, and literally the government, the constitution, everything has changed since September of this year before season 5. So we are looking at treading on some ground that is a bit shaky, especially with such a new reign now underway.
Absolutely. Well, look, I'll go home after this and watch it, and I'll get back to you. Thomas, thank you very much for making your points. I don't think we've had so many double barrels on the show before. I think that's a triple barrel. So congratulations. Thank you very much. Wow. So not only do we have someone in Mrs. Doubtfire, we found out in the interval that Lewis has been on The Crown twice.
I've been twice. No, just last season. I've been there twice, like six or seven times. And I think, I'm not going to criticize him. I'm not going to criticize. The fact is, it's one television program. It's not like it's on the BBC either. It's on Netflix.
Yeah, but it is going around the world, and this arguably, like Thomas is arguing, it's creating a myth that then is propagated. Yeah. And what about younger people and onwards? Sorry for interrupting.
But what about the myth that the monarchy plants all the time, that the Queen is just giving her service away to people?
I don't think that's a myth. I think that was arguably true.
That's what they're presenting. So he's basically, it's so insulting to the British young people to think that British young people can't make up their own mind. They're basing it on one television program. There's been so much more. I mean, listen, it's not my business whether you people want to believe this ridiculous thing about a monarchy.
People.
Yeah, it's not my. I mean, I'm not English. My kids are English, and I wish they would grow up in a place that doesn't have a monarchy. I don't think it's appropriate, and I think the more the monarchy is masculinized with Prince Charles and King Charles and his son, the more people are going to. I'm hoping this is just me. I know this is the wrong place to say that I'm against the monarchy.
Mate, it's free speech nation. You can
but
say
the fact is, the problem with the Crown, as I see it, is it humanizes these people. Maybe rightly, maybe wrongly, it presents them as human beings.
So you think they're aliens?
I think the problem with the monarchy is not that they're people, it's the institution that's in place, and that is the worst thing. This country doesn't need a monarchy. I think you're all adults. You can make up your own mind on how to rule yourself. You don't need to have a guy in an old suit.
What do you think, Scott? Do you agree? Another fellow American?
There's something about Lewis that makes me want to crawl inside a hole and die. But because I think he's never going to stop. I think he's never going to take a breath or blink. I don't mind her. She was all right. The rest of them could slide off the earth if it were up to me. And obviously the princes are garbage. But really, they're just people. They make mistakes. They're flawed. I don't see the big deal. Also, it's a TV show. It's a dramatic. Young people. I don't know all the young people. He's a mind reader, I guess. He knows what everybody's thinking.
Well, also, we don't know how many young people are actually watching the show.
And if they are, they probably are aware. They're probably leaving the room. They're going for a piddle. They're having a meal. They're missing half of it, like most people do when they watch TV anyway.
Not our audience.
Well, also, I agree with Lewis to a certain extent, although I'm not going to rattle on about it. But they are the royal family. It is fake. Their name is fake. They're just people. There's nothing special about any of them. Some of them seem quite thick to me and dangerous, actually. But like most people do sometimes. So I don't see the point of elevating them or giving them money. I just think they should be, sent to a cellar and all handled at the same time. Because you've got to get rid of them all at once, because some of them might resurface, like the Russians. That's
No. You went a step too far.
Right. So this is the last episode of Free Speech Nation. And sorry, Andrew. After the break on Free Speech Nation, Harry Miller from the Fair Cop campaign is here with an update on the recording of non-crime hate incidents. We'll be back soon.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
for helping our great nation
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland,
Wales
And Northern Ireland. On TV.
on radio and online.
We're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something weird happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky.
That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg.
And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak. Stop talking.
My God, we reached the end. I've never been early in my life. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. In an apparent victory for activism, the policing minister has confirmed that chief constables have been ordered to stop recording non-crime hate incidents. This is in the wake of the case Miller versus College of Policing. We've been covering this for quite a while. Joining us now is Harry Miller himself, former police officer and member of Fair Cop. Good evening, Harry. This sounds like very positive news.
Good
now, do you see it that way?
I suppose it's a victory of sorts, but I will believe it when I see it. When Chris Phillips spoke last week, and I think it was the Oxford University Conservative Association, he said that he'd spoken with the boss of the College of Policing, and they'd agreed that they would tell all chief constables to cease and desist from these abhorrent recording of hate. And if they refuse to do so, then the government would make them by featuring it in the upcoming police reform bill next year. So I think we're heading in the right direction. It's just very, very slow. Unfortunately, chief constables see non-crime hate incidents in rather the same way that Gollum views the ring. In other words, it's very much get off them, they're my precious. They are so loath to give them up, and we may have to take them kicking and screaming back to court. Who knows? But it's a step in the right direction.
So what role did the case Miller versus College of Policing actually play in this then?
Oh, we kicked their ass. I mean, we absolutely kicked their ass. And that's why they can't forgive us. That's why they don't like us. They don't like what I do, what Fair Cop does, and they certainly don't like what the Bad Law Project is doing, because we've got real teeth and we can go in and bite them. And that's exactly what we intend to do. So what we did, they had this ridiculous situation where the recording of non-crime hate incidents was mandatory if anybody perceived anything as hate. That could be a raised eyebrow. That could be a limerick in my case. Anything at all could be perceived as a hate incident, and the College of Policing required police forces to record on their database of hate without any evidence of hate. What we did, we kicked that into the long grass. But as I say, chief constables have got rather used to recording hate because it's a lot easier than recording and detecting crime. So they don't want to let them go, so we're going to make them.
I see. So look, I should quickly apologise for language and also, of course, any Lord of the Rings references. Do you have concerns then? It sounds like you do very much about the police's approach. I mean, have you seen any evidence that they're now actually starting to back off, or are they still handing these out?
Yeah, they are backing off a little bit. What we found now is that if we go in on an individual's behalf and challenge a chief constable, they will remove them. But short of a challenge, they don't remove them. They keep recording them because it suits them to record them. They are invested in seeing hate absolutely everywhere.
I see. So one of the things I read on the thread that when this was released online is people are saying the ones that have already been handed out, what happens to those? Are those going to be deleted?
Well, we hope so. The Bad Law Project wrote to Priti Patel last summer demanding that she tell police forces to delete all non-crime hate incidents because they're unlawful. You know, we don't have a country where you can be arbitrarily recorded on a database of hate. We don't have a system whereby your character is judged by the authority, by the police. We have a very clear system. If you've committed a crime, you pay for it. But short of committing a crime, the police have no business whatsoever in recording you on any database whatsoever. So we will keep pushing the Home Secretary, to keep pushing the College of Policing, to keep pushing chief constables to get rid of these damnable blights on people's lives.
Well, absolutely. I just got a vision of you there as a former policeman. It was quite. I imagine you were quite good at it. How do you get on now with your former colleagues?
I was a rubbish policeman. I was only a policeman for about 2 minutes back in the days when Inspector Morse was still a police cadet. It's a long time ago. But what I do remember very much from my policing days is that people are free and they should not be interfered with by the police unless they've committed a crime or unless they're about to commit a crime. At that point, we swoop in and we nab them. What we don't do is wander around checking on limericks and speech and recording people's characters because we ideologically disapprove of them. And that's what our modern police service is all about. They are character police, not crime police.
OK, well, Harry Miller, thank you so much. And not just for this interview, I just got to say thank you for fighting for this, because this affects all of us, the people who've been running this a long time. So it is a big victory. Keep on fighting that fight. And thank you very much for coming on and talking to us today. After the break on Free Speech Nation, a FIFA boss goes on a bizarre rant, Joe Lycett shreds some money, and Matt Hancock has a boogie. See you at 3.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here. You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join me, Arlene Foster, for the briefing on GB News. Every Friday at 3 p.m, I'll give you all the latest political news and analysis, and we'll have robust live debate. To make sure that you're caught up on all of the biggest issues of the day, we'll bring on experts in their field. I'll ask the questions that you'd like to ask. We're not afraid to tackle discussions from all perspectives, including yours. Don't forget, the briefing with me, Arlene Foster, every Friday at 3 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me, noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
Welcome back to the final part of Free Speech Nation. It's time now for Social Sensations, where we take a look at some of the weird and wonderful stories which have been captivating social media. Let's start with comedian Joe Lycett, who last week told David Beckham that Lycett would destroy 10 grand in cash if the former footballer did not abandon his lucrative Qatari TV deal. I'm going to commentate for the radio audience out there. There are 2 bundles of cash. Lycett. He's going to pick them up. He's wearing a wonderful, is that a jumper or?
It's a rainbow frou-frou thing.
Frou-frou thing, yes. Thank you very much from Scott Capurro there. And then he takes them over to the shredder. The tension is unbearable, and in they go.
There's David Blaine. There's David Blaine behind there.
Lycett, true to his word, and he's now done a little bow, and he's off. So what do we make of this stunt?
I think it's a stunt. I don't think he did it. Now that I see it, it wasn't.
Oh, you think he chucked it behind the thing?
Yeah, I don't think he rolled up his hair. You know, he didn't roll up his sleeves.
He stored it in the tutu?
He possibly did that, and we don't know. It was pretty far away, and we don't know. There wasn't somebody from Price Waterhouse or Coopers or whatever, Coopers and Library. You know, there wasn't an accountant the way they do in America.
Well, I'm going to assume that there isn't a conspiracy here, and that he did destroy the money. What do you think, Scott?
I guess he's doing well.
Yeah, what Joe is, yeah.
Yeah, good for him. You know, I've been a fan of Beckham for a long time. He was a screensaver when I was single, and I think for a lot of people. And it's not just him I'm disappointed in, though. There's others too.
Yes, of course.
I mean, there are 7 countries that have sent players that have laws criminalizing homosexuality that are playing that match. I just think that, you know, FIFA should live up to their own rules. They have rules against this sort of thing, so I wish they would, you know, defend them.
I mean, David Beckham, obviously, the tournament starts now. David Beckham, he is not giving back that money.
He's so rich and he's so successful. It's one event he could have missed, I think. That's just what I think about it.
Yeah.
Where's the wife, by the way?
She's working for Dubai.
Yeah. They're raking it in.
Yeah, staying with the World Cup. And how about this from FIFA boss Gianni Infantino, who went on a bizarre press conference rant about the European media's coverage of the treatment of minority groups and migrant workers in Qatar.
I'm a woman.
Today I feel Arab. Today I feel African. Today I feel gay. Today I feel disabled. Today I feel a migrant worker.
Today I feel bald. That was a pretty amazing speech.
A migrant worker in a $4,000 suit.
Yeah.
I mean, I've worked in the Middle East. I've seen those migrant workers. They don't live his life. He's sociopathic. He's in a bubble, and he thinks that he's being smart and clever. And he thinks he's saying what the media wants to hear, but what he's saying is he's in bed with the Qatari government, and he's just going to do what he wants, like FIFA always does. There's so much money involved. They don't care, is kind of what it sounds like he's saying to me. I can understand and feel everyone's feelings. He doesn't know anyone or anything that he's talking about.
Do you know what?
It's so insulting.
I think enough virtue signaling. The fact is, this is not the Qatari Cup. This is the World Cup. We have countries all around the world. We don't agree with the countries. It's like the bar scene in Star Wars. You don't say, I'm not going to go in there because that guy is in there. At the end of the day, we have to live with countries that don't follow our...
But we don't have to throw billions of dollars at them. And Australia should have gotten the game. They should have.
No, of course.
You know what? I
can't corrupt from the start.
Yeah.
I can't support Australia. I think Australia's even worse what they did with lockdown.
Okay,
I think that's
they're not even
worse than Qatar on human rights.
They are really bad. I agree with you. I don't think that it should have been held there. But the fact is, and I don't think David Beckham should have accepted money from Qatar. But I do think that the World Cup is there. There's nothing wrong with going to the World Cup once it's there, because it's the World Cup.
Again, there's been a slight theme where actually when these things happen, people then reveal themselves. Trump and now Qatar, and actually I'd argue that this is bad for them. It's drawn far more attention to them negatively than it would have otherwise.
The beer ban is terrible for them. It's a nightmare. It is. It's a nightmare for them.
Yeah, no, of course. They showed that they were willing to bend, and then no. Someone makes a unilateral decision and it's over.
If you bend, you have to take it.
Right. Okay. Enough World Cup now. We head to the jungle for our weekly dose of chaos from the Matt Hancock Roadshow.
Oh, God.
Left, 2, 3, 4. Back, 2, 3. Yeah. Just go. So. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Back. 1, 2, 3, 4. Forward for 1. Back for 1. Step, lift the leg and stop. Yes!
Now there is someone who drinks milk on a date. Lewis, what do you think of Matt Hancock's moves there?
Well, it bothers me because when I see attention seekers like that, I personally am an attention seeker. I wear high-vis jackets around the house, just like pay attention to me. So I know what attention seeking is. And I think, and then someone like him, who represented one of the most horrific times in this country, the diminution of rights, the lockdowns, the fake pandemic that happened.
I should point out, for Ofcom reasons, that the pandemic happened.
Not as we were told that it happened.
Okay,
and the fact that he didn't believe it either. He was with some chick while it was happening, while he's telling us that we can't do it. So it did not happen.
It was worth it for him.
So if you bring me into court and you say
okay,
that's not true, you have to take this guy, Matt Hancock, and you have to say, well, you obviously didn't believe it because you were out with some girl. If it was such a serious, the same thing with that guy Neil Ferguson.
I'm not going to get into defending Matt Hancock. I don't have time. Now the part where we talk through your unfiltered dilemmas before the end is right now. Our first, maybe only, dilemma is from Helen. I disapprove of my son's girlfriend. I find her antisocial, quite rude, and overall a bore. What's the right way to break to my boy that he can do better? What do you think, Scott?
Yeah, I don't know about raising kids and all that, although that mother seems a bit too involved in her son's love life. I guess offer him money. I don't know. I wish we had photos of the.
Isn't it nice that your partner's mum wrote in, Lewis?
I would say the best way. Maybe she should call up Scott and see what Scott could do. Maybe break it up. I mean, I would be just if my son, if either of them came home with girlfriends. I would be
so proud of them.
I would be proud of them. I was like so proud when my son got a job. I was like, oh my God, my job is done. And she should just relax.
Yeah, be excited. My mom, when I had a girlfriend, my mom was so excited.
Yeah.
I did date a woman for a while in my early 30s. I met this woman in acting class. She's real pretty, real nice. We did a David Mamet scene, gropey. And then we hung out for a while. My mom was like, I don't mind you being gay, but a girlfriend. She was so excited. She kind of killed the buzz for me.
Oh, really?
She took away the friction.
Because she was so happy.
She was so happy about it, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Maybe the mothers just back off and the son asks, just say, I think she's a pig, and then he'll really want her more.
Well, there you go, Helen. Great advice. Thank you very much for joining us for Free Speech Nation. This was the week when MPs were revealed to be state-funded boozers. A date went wrong because one of the guests ordered milk. And a painting was taken down because it was featured 3 ageing white men, like us here. Speaking of ageing white men, thank you so much to my panel, Louis Schaefer and Scott Capurro, and to all of my guests this evening. If you want to join us live in the studio and be part of our one audience, you can. Thank you so much for joining in. See you next time.
Looking ahead to tomorrow's weather across the UK. Icy and foggy towards the northeast, with wind and rain in the southwest. Let's take a look in more detail. A few showers for Orkney and Shetland, otherwise a mostly dry start on Monday for Scotland. Cold though, with icy patches and some fog too. Meanwhile, very wet and windy across much of Northern Ireland, with heavy rain arriving overnight. Dry across northern England. In the northwest, temperatures will be a few degrees above freezing, but in the northeast, it will be icy and foggy. North Wales is also looking dry at first. It will be rather cloudy, and further south, there will be heavy rain and very strong winds, which will spread across Wales throughout the morning. Whilst the West Midlands will get off to a mostly cloudy start, for the East Midlands, the skies will be clearer. That does mean it'll be quite chilly though, especially in rural areas. Clear and chilly across much of East Anglia. Here temperatures will be around or perhaps a touch below freezing, so some frost and icy patches are possible first thing. Cloudy for southern parts. In the southeast, it'll be mostly dry, whilst heavy rain and very strong winds will bring difficult driving conditions in the southwest. The wind and rain will continue north.